I want to share my love for professional wrestling. I've developed a severe passion for this sport or this craft. Welcome to Bob Scar Wrestling. I'm going to talk about how I got into it when I was a kid, how I went away from it for a long time, how I came back to it through the pandemic era and what influenced me and what made me fall back in love with this product and what makes me think it's the greatest form of entertainment on this planet. And then later I'm going to talk about how I had the opportunity to go to WrestleMania 39 in LA and to Elimination Chamber in Perth and what my experience was like being in those stadiums, being in front of those crowds, watching those performers live compared to watching them on TV. I want to know if like a lot of people are similar in this regard. So there's probably like a multitude of fans. There's people that have been watching it forever. There's people that have only just jumped on the bandwagon, which is kind of me. There's also people, I guess, like me, who had it growing up. So, you know, we all know Stone Cold's, The Rock's, The Undertaker. Growing up, my brother and I would go like to the DVD store. We would buy DVDs of certain pay-per-views and stuff. I don't really have any recollection of like storylines or anything, but more so just like Stone Cold versus The Rock, or who The Undertaker is as like a figure or a character or whatever. So naturally, like growing up, we would wrestle a lot. We would put on wrestling matches in our backyard or in our living room, and he would throw me off the couch, and that was that. This is how you know I love the theatrical side of wrestling and not just beating people up. I would go to my brother and I would say, hey, like, do you want to like do a wrestling match or whatever? And he'd be like, yeah, sure. And he would just beat the crap out of me. And I'd be like, no, like I want to do like the entrances, or like, what's our character doing? Or like, you know, how do we choreograph this? Like, I'll punch you and throw you here, and then you do this here. And he wasn't interested, but clearly I was. Through high school, I remember John Cena and stuff. Like I would occasionally watch Raw or SmackDown. You know, this is kind of like Super Cena era where he's got the title. I remember looking back, I was like, oh, he was the champion for like ever. And like, I didn't realize people kind of hated him as well. I always just thought John Cena was this god. He was John Cena, you know? And then I didn't watch it for 10, 15 years. That was it. And you kind of talk about it like, oh yeah, that's that thing with The Rock or with John Cena, or it's fake or it's lame or whatever you want to say. And then the pandemic hit and we all had nothing to do, including myself. I stumbled upon a documentary. I think it was when The Undertaker retired, right? And then he was on Joe Rogan or something like that, and I watched it. And it kind of flooded back all these memories of when I was wrestling with my brother, or it just brought up all these memories of like these characters and this world, this like performance, this sport. And I connected to this guy, this wrestler, The Undertaker, and watching his documentary about how he like performed for 30 years and how much he loved the sport and the dedication he brought to the sport and how much that impacted the fans. And I felt this like little light inside of me go on. I was like, yeah, like that's really cool. Like he's a performer. It's like you're acting, you're performing. It's like high level stunt performing. It was just like, it was spectacular. And so I finished this documentary and I think I'm crying and I'm going, how does this, maybe it's the pandemic. It's been tough on all of us. Or maybe that's the power of professional wrestling. So I turn it on and I see a bunch of people I have no idea who they are. Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio is still kicking. That was cool to see. There's all these young guys and I was going, this is kind of lame. And it just felt like, not to bash it or anything like that. I was like, this isn't what it was. But I don't know if I was caught up in the nostalgia because there was one thing that just kept me coming back. Like there's all these like screens. There's like no fans, obviously. There's only one consistent kind of thing that kept me coming back, and that was Roman Reigns. He was clearly presented as like a heel, top dog, and I was buying it. I remember watching WrestleMania 37 because that was when the fans came back, and he'd done a couple of pay-per-views. I think he wrestled like Jey Uso, maybe Kevin Owens, and he kept winning. And then it comes to WrestleMania, it's Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns. And I was like, he's done. Like, he can't beat Edge. Edge is like the best. And he stacks him and pins him. And I was so mad. I was like, this fucking guy does not deserve to be the champion. He keeps cheating to win. And I think that's the first time as an adult fan where I realized I'd been fucking hoodwinked by this program. Because I was coming back every week complaining about the guy who's meant to be the bad guy, and I've just been done hook, line, and sinker. And slowly but surely, it just got better. And we can go into the whole... I won't go into the whole stuff about Vince McMahon because fuck that guy. But like when he was easing out, that whole period where he was kind of leaving the company, you could just see the product getting better and better and better. And each week I'm coming back and I'm invested, and I'm watching these characters go through things, and I'm watching them have hardships. I'm watching them battle out in these awesome physical performances. And I'm just like so bought into it, to the point where I'm like telling everyone that I love this thing unashamedly, when they're all kind of, you tell people you're into pro wrestling, they go, oh, is that fake thing? Or they look at you weird. And I go, yeah, you should give it a go. You should watch it. I have countless stories about how I've put it on for people, and then they're talking shit. Kind of how I was. I'm talking like, who's this guy? What's he doing? And then by the end of it, they're like jumping and yelling. And I'm like, yeah, that's the power of professional wrestling. It's fucking awesome. Where was that? Roman Reigns. He's winning and winning and winning. And then it's all about his bloodline and his family. And the stakes are high. And then I'm watching WrestleMania 38. Stone Cold comes back. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Not only like he can still go. I was like, this is sick. Like he had a sick match, and he's getting suplex on concrete. He's got the ATV. He's like drinking beers, and that kid Austin Theory takes like the best stunner I've seen ever. Like you see all these clips of people taking Stone Cold stunners, and that's the best one. I'm now kind of like bridging this gap between like the old and the new. Is this the time? Is this the time? But then night 2, I think, of WrestleMania 38, Cody Rhodes comes back. I didn't know who this guy was, really. I kind of remember him because I think his main period was when I wasn't watching, like post John Cena, right? The presentation of this guy, like I remember, like, who's Seth Rollins' mystery partner going to be? We were all wondering who that was. And I wasn't someone that was like on the internet about wrestling. Like I'm kind of just watching it, almost like closeted wrestling fan. I'm like, just throw it on. Cody Rhodes appears out of nowhere. And he has this awesome presentation where he rises out of the stage. He comes down and he puts on one of the coolest matches I've ever seen. Like him and Seth Rollins went toe to toe. They're just great performers. Like their chemistry together in the ring, their ability to tell story. I just felt this like underdog mentality from Cody Rhodes, and he had this presentation that felt larger than life. And I don't know if I'm looking at this retroactively because of what he's like today, but even at that time, I think I was like, who's this guy? Like I was like interested for the first time in someone new that wasn't Roman Reigns just kicking people's ass. And then on Monday Night Raw, Cody Rhodes comes out and he says, here's my dad, and here's the belt that he held for 30 seconds and never got, and I want that belt. And I'm sitting here, I'm going, fuck yeah. Because I'm sitting here every pay-per-view, I'm complaining that Roman Reigns is still winning. And he wins and he wins and he cheats. And you're like, I was like, fuck this guy. So then over that year, Cody Rhodes ends up getting hurt. And he wrestles Seth Rollins again with this like torn pec. And it's clearly fucking ripped off his bone. And I've even shown people this, and they're like, is that real? Like, is it makeup? I'm like, no. Look how swollen that arm is. Like, that dude is here and he means business. And like, I haven't even got into like the meta side of this hobby, this show, like whatever you want to call it, where like, it's all about the backstage stuff that is as awesome as what's going on screen. Because like, you look at this guy who's come back to the WWE after 7 years or whatever. He's going for his dad's belt. And now he's not even going to let a torn pec stop him from getting that. And like the amount of respect that probably earned him backstage to like garner the clout to then get the championship is, yeah, anyway. Awesome match with Seth Rollins. He goes away until the Royal Rumble. I think it was like 8 months or something like that. Comes back in the Royal Rumble. He looks so good. Like he looks like he's leaned up. He's been training. And he wins the Royal Rumble. So now he gets to verse whoever he wants. Obviously Roman, because he's the top champ at WrestleMania. And you're like, he's going to do it. Like it's such a cool comeback underdog story. The crowd's behind him. We all hated Roman and we wanted someone new. Like Roman had been around at that time. I think it was like 1,000 days as champion. It wasn't getting stale because of the bloodline, but it was getting stale because like how many more matches can you have the bloodline interfere in and not be predictable? Coming back, like the Sami Zayn bloodline story had me like in tears multiple times. Tears of laughter, tears of joy, tears of sadness. I was so invested in that story that like when it ended at the Royal Rumble, when Sami finally hits Roman with that chair, you're just like popping so hard. Every week I'm tuning in because I want to see what happens with the bloodline. There's these twin brothers that are feuding over the position of tribal chief. There's the other brother Solo who's coming in. He's bringing this new mix. It's this like, it's almost like this tribalistic Godfather mafia thing that they're doing with Roman being the head of the table, head of the bloodline, and it's family. It's Shakespeare. It's love and hate. It's life and death. Like that's what wrestling can be, and those extremes create such high emotions. And I think when the storytelling, like it's been over the past 2 or 3 years, is long term, and we're watching these characters evolve, and we're watching these characters go through different scenarios and have feelings about it and have conflicts. And it's, yes, there's heels and there's the good guys and the bad guys, heels or baby faces, and it's kind of a duality or a dichotomy like that. But it's the new nuance of adding character and remembering it. Like the thing that Jey Uso did 6 months ago is called back in the Royal Rumble when Sami Zayn finally betrays Roman because he's been pushed down and gaslit by this group, the Bloodline, that because he developed such a great friendship with Jey, when he kills Roman with the chair, not only was it the biggest fucking pop I've ever heard, bigger than some of Stone Cold's pops, that like the crowd was so behind Roman getting chair shotted, it betrayed Jay's trust in Sami, and now you've got like it would just on so many levels did it ignite like a fire in you, because now you're like, fuck yeah. Sami, I was convinced Sami was going to take the title off Roman next pay-per-view, because I was like, where else do they go from this? But then obviously Cody coming back won the Royal Rumble, and you now have like 3 or 4 or 5 kind of storylines that you can go out from that, right? Like Sami is now out of the bloodline, so he needs allies in Cody and Kevin Owens, and just coming back week to week to find out what happened to these characters. And I think that's special. It's not necessarily groundbreaking because we've had TV forever, but it's groundbreaking in the sense of like, this culminates in a physical theater that's real. It's wrestlers putting their bodies on the line to tell you stories, to move you emotionally, to create your entertainment. And I think that's possibly one of the most beautiful pieces of art on this planet, because the skill involved, both physically and artistically and creatively, is almost the pinnacle of each medium of art. You have visual, you have emotional, and you have physical. And I think that's the beauty of professional wrestling. And it has me. It has me like nothing else has ever had me. And then I had the opportunity to go to WrestleMania 39 in LA first time in America, walking into that stadium full of 80,000 people was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. The atmosphere in there is unlike anything else. This passion that I'm describing is beaming out of 80,000 people all towards that center ring. And it's beautiful. Like, I've been to sporting events and they can get quite aggressive because it's like, it's tribalistic in that thing. Like, I want that guy to win and you want this person to win. And wrestling doesn't have that because we all know it's predetermined. The guy who wins or the girl who wins it's been written. You can't do anything about it. Yeah, you can get a bit mad about it, but you'll have someone in like a Roman shirt booing him. It's like clear that we're all kind of participating in this act. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, because we're all contributing to the overall effect of what wrestling is. And I think the crowd is such a huge dynamic to that, because it's the direct response of, is it going well? Is it responsive? Like, is it creating a feeling for the crowd? And being involved in that main event at WrestleMania with Cody and Roman was epic. And let me tell you, when everyone in that stadium, I don't know if I'm being like hyperbolic, but like when everyone in that stadium, including myself, was like 100% on Cody Rhodes winning that belt, when he got pinned, there was a silence in that stadium that I hadn't heard for 4 hours, because it was like the air just got like sucked out of that stadium, and everyone was like, what the fuck just happened? How is he not? Like, and then coming back to that feeling I've had for fucking 3 years at that point, where I'm like, how is this motherfucker still got the belt? He still has the belt. I'm like equally pissed off as I am like laughing at this amazing, like, how they kept me invested for this long. And boy, oh boy, they kept us invested for another year. I was like, how do they do this? And they did. It just got better again. Over the next year, Cody builds up as this like even bigger baby face. And all the way up until the Royal Rumble again, he wins it again. And you're like, this is it. He has to win it. And you're like so invested in this story that like the stakes are so high that you like, the way I'm talking about this is how visceral you are. You're watching a television show. You're watching people wrestle. You're watching people body slam each other. Like, how am I this invested? And I think it's that relationship between the stories, the characters, and the physical theater, and the fans, the crowd, the participation that creates this feeling like you're involved. Like, this is yours. It's connective. It's powerful. And then I had the chance to go to a premium live event here in Australia, in my hometown of Perth. It was like I'd manifested this dream for myself. I remember after going to WrestleMania, I was like, I want to go to WrestleMania with my brother. Like, we have that old school love for it. Stone Cold, The Rock, that kind of thing. I was like, I think now's the time to get back into it. And if I took my brother to a WrestleMania, then we could like reconnect on that passion, that love for the sport. And I like manifested this because like WWE just released pay-per-view, premium live event, Elimination Chamber in Perth, my hometown. I'm sitting here like, what the fuck? They've never done this ever. Why now? Is it me? So I went to that, and I think what was different for me than WrestleMania was it was my second premium live event. I'd had a year or two more of watching the product to understand the characters more. And I think I was maybe the person yelling the loudest, the most consistently the whole time. I was screaming, and I'm screaming, snap his fingers off and all sorts. And I was convinced The Rock was coming. You know, I know people say it's like a filler pay-per-view, but just to be in a crowd of 50,000 people in my home city all celebrating the love of wrestling was just so special. To have Cody Rhodes come out and to sing his theme song, it was so cool to see from WrestleMania 39. Not even a year later, the whole crowd knew his song. Like, he is so over and the crowd is so behind him. I was certain that he was going to win that belt. He goes through wins the Royal Rumble. The Rock comes back. The Rock says, no, you can't win. You can't have the match. And people lose their minds. So what do? They pivot. They integrate The Rock back into the bloodline. Cody's still the babyface. The Rock comes in. He's the bad guy now. And boy, oh boy, does that connect back to my deep love for this, because The Rock's back. He's bad. He's mean. And he's fucking swearing. He's making Cody Rhodes bleed. And no one, I don't think anyone, that's a lie. I kind of wanted Roman to win. But I don't think anyone wanted Cody to lose that match. So when you go into WrestleMania 40, the biggest WrestleMania of all time, and Cody Rhodes wins that belt, and you have the callbacks to all the guys that have been decimated by the bloodline, including The Undertaker, who got me back into wrestling because of his beautiful documentary. He got one last chance to show the world why he loves this sport. I'm tearing up. It was amazing when 1, 2, 3. Cody Rhodes is the undisputed Universal Champion of WWE. And I'm sitting there crying, a grown man, watching grown men wrestle, wondering to myself, how has this affected me so much? And I think it's because I love professional wrestling. And I think it's the greatest form of entertainment on this planet. So, started a little channel. I want to talk about my love of professional wrestling. And I want you all to come on board and talk about it with me. If you've been here forever, if you're new, comment below. Tell me why you love professional wrestling. There's other stuff. Like, let's talk about other storylines. But I think for now, I'm going to leave it on that. Subscribe. I'm going to talk about wrestling. I'm going to talk about my experience with wrestling. And yeah, thanks for watching.